swept. In other news today, let's move on to maybe some happier times. If you missed it, Will Smith, Mookie Betts, Tyler Glasnow, Freddie Freeman, and Teoscar Hernández were named to the National League team. They joined Shohei Ohtani, who was voted in as an All-Star Game starter. Dodgers have 6 All-Stars for the third time since 2017. Of course, Mookie won't be playing in the game because he's still recovering from his fractured hand. Blake, out of the 6 that have been named to the National League roster so far, is there anyone from the group that maybe you're happiest for?
Probably Tyler Glasnow, just because it's his first one, which that surprised me a bit. I figured he would have had 1 or 2, but just based on the talent. But then when you really think about it, it makes sense considering his best year was last year with the innings, and he just hasn't been healthy for most of his career. So, like, on the surface, it's a little shocking, and then you get into it and like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. So, hometown guy, he's having a great year. He's happy to be in LA. Really happy for him. And then I think also Teoscar, I'll throw him into. I know you asked for one, but Teoscar's a really good guy, and he's always out there having fun, kind of leading the team on with the sunflower seed cheers and just all that. So good to see that too.
Yeah, you took my pick. I know Scott's here in the chat with everybody. I'm going to give his guy Teoscar a shout out. I think you make a lot of great points about Glasnow. Hometown kid, his first one being with the Dodgers. That's certainly a great story. So I don't want to take anything away from him. But for me, I think I went with Teoscar more so because he was really like an under the radar signing during the offseason, right? Like the focus, understandably so, was on Ohtani and Yamamoto and the Glasnow trade and extension. And it was almost like, okay, like, yes, they signed Teoscar Hernández. It's only a 1-year deal. He's coming off somewhat of an inconsistent year. He struggled hitting at home with the Mariners, this and that. And so I think it's fair to say, like I said, it wasn't as touted as some of their big offseason moves. And so to see what he has meant, what Teoscar has meant to the team, especially, right-handed power bat has certainly been valuable for the Dodgers. I wish he could have been voted in as a starter. He was among the top. He was third, I think, every time, but that's all he needed to be until he got into phase 2. And then he was passed late by Fernando Tatis Jr. So the Padres now somehow have 2 starting outfielders in Tatis and Jurickson Profar, because Teoscar had slipped to 4th. And I think ESPN, when they did their announcement and reveal, they said that it was a difference of about 3,000 votes. So not necessarily very much, but hey, Teoscar gets out there anyway. Like we said, 6 Dodgers All-Stars, at least for now. Is there any shot you think, now that Teoscar is in the All-Star game, that he will get named to the Home Run Derby? Because he's said he wants to do it. And at this point, if he's going to be out there anyway, he might MLB say, hey, okay, let's make this a formality. That did happen with Pete Alonso tonight, who announced he's going to be participating. He's also among the National League reserves. And Gunnar Henderson was the first to commit to the Home Run Derby, and Alec Boehm is also participating in it.
Yeah, I think there's a chance. I think Teo is like 4th in homers in the National League or somewhere around there off the top of my head. So he's right in position to have himself there. And especially if he wants to, we already know Ohtani's not going to do it. And there's always a few of the top guys who end up skipping out on it. Bryce Harper's probably not going to be an option for it because he's also dealing with an injury. I don't think we're going to see like Freddie Freeman want to do it or anything like that. So, yeah, I think Teoscar being on the Dodgers and wanting to get some MLB wanting to bring in some big city representation, I think there's a chance he's one of the guys picked.
Would you need to see the field, or would you put some theoretical money down on Teoscar Hernández to win the Derby if he's in it?
I don't think I'd pick him to win it. I mean, Pete Alonso is probably going to be the easy favorite. And I'm probably going to be rooting for Gunnar Henderson. Sorry, everyone. That's my guy.
No.
So I don't think I'm going to put the money down on Teoscar.
Okay. So while the All-Star moments, announcements, the reserves and the pitchers were certainly great for the players who made it, there was a pretty glaring admission in Gavin Stone not being named among the National League pitchers. Blake, can you explain maybe or at least try to explain to our audience why Gavin Stone wasn't on the All-Star team?
I think it's a combination of things. Like, there's a lot of really good pitchers in the NL. I was kind of looking at the options who made it and who he could replace. And it's like, every time I pulled up a name, I was like, well, he also deserves to be there kind of thing. and then you also take into the fact that every team needs a representative. I think that's where a lot of like the snubs come from, because the players make their votes, the fans make their votes, and then MLB has to pick from the rest of teams that like don't have someone that got voted in. So then you see other guys start to sneak in who aren't as deserving. Like, I know Diamondbacks fans are really mad that Pete Alonso made it over Christian Walker, but Pete Alonso is the only Mets representative. So you would have to replace him, and like there might not be another Met that was deserving. So it's just kind of a toss up in a lot of these cases where the less deserving players get it. But in the NL, I think it was just such a deep competition of the options that they could have picked. Like Chris Sale made it, and he's having a phenomenal year. Tyler Glasnow wasn't going to get snubbed for Gavin Stone. I think Ronaldo Lopez is like a 1.8 ERA this year. He made it on there. Paul Skeens is the Pirates representative, and he's like everyone's favorite pitcher now with what he's doing. So there just wasn't a whole lot of room there. I think Logan Webb made it with the Giants. He's having another good year, similar to Gavin Stone, just with more innings. So he'll probably get on as an injury replacement or something at some point. But like when I was looking, it's not the worst thing that he didn't get on, even though I do think he is deserving.
Yeah, that's a great point that you bring up, and one that I was going to mention as well. Is as much as Gavin Stone wasn't named among the initial roster, there's always additions and changes, both because of injuries and with pitchers specifically. Because if you pitch on the Sunday before the All-Star game, then you're ineligible to participate in it, and so they end up needing to name a replacement for you. So there are a couple different pathways for Gavin Stone to make his way onto the All-Star game, the National League team, excuse me. Is there anybody in the Dodgers bullpen that maybe you thought had a shot or should have been included?
I mean, I think Evan Phillips and Alex Vesia both had a chance, but players and the commissioner are who picks the relievers. So it always pretty much ends up being the top guys and saves every year. And with the Dodgers, a lot of times winning by a lot of runs and not giving Phillips a save chance, plus him missing injury time with injuries, like it just didn't seem that likely for him to make it. And then same with Vesia, he's more of a setup man, and he gets a few save opportunities here and there, but not enough to compete with the other closers. And then, like I said, the National League was so stacked with pitching this year that it's hard to argue for some of these guys to make it compared to the other guys who did make it, just because the options are really, really good.
So all of that being said, do you think at this point it's pretty much Gavin Stone or nobody for the Dodgers in terms of getting maybe another All-Star selection?
I would say like 80% yes to that. I think Phillips probably has an outside chance of making it, and or maybe even Vesia, depending on what some of the other relievers or pitchers end up doing. But there's still other options who are deserving as well. And I'm sure MLB, if they're picking between two guys, they might prefer to get, say, a second Pirates player or a second Diamondbacks player versus a seventh or eighth Dodger player. So it's always kind of tougher there with things like there's so much that goes into All-Star voting. Players vote on it a week before the fan vote is announced for the first phase. So like there's just so much that goes into it. It's not like players are picking from who didn't make it and filling it out. It's everyone voting at the same time, and then MLB fills in with who needs representatives and all that stuff.
And so Juan Kier has this question about All-Star selections. Who has the most in the AL and NL? I'm not 100% sure in the American League, but I know the Phillies have an MLB high 7 players going. So they lead, obviously, the National League in baseball. Do you happen to know off the top of your head who in the American League has the most?
I know the Guardians have 5, so that might be up there.
Okay.
I'm sure the Yankees are probably up there with a few, but no, I'm not aware off the top of my head. I can try and pull it up.
Yeah, go ahead. So just to recap, the Dodgers for now at least have 6 All-Stars heading to Globe Life Field. Again, Shohei Ohtani was voted in as the starting DH for the National League team. Going with him now as reserves/pitchers are Will Smith, Mookie Betts, Tyler Glasnow, Freddie Freeman, and Teoscar Hernández. Again, Mookie's not going to be playing because of his hand fracture. I imagine it's probably a toss-up as to whether or not he'll even travel for that, so we'll have to see. So that's where that stands.